Welcome back to the channel. Today you're going to learn how to master the new version of Delves. I say new because Delves have been a mess. First, they were trivial in groups, then they were too hard to solo, then it turned out that Brann was absurdly bugged, then that bug got fixed, but that made Brann basically useless, so then they over doubled his health and his damage. It's been a roller coaster over the last few days, but the good news is we've written it for you. So here's everything you need to succeed in Delves, and by succeed, I mean, as an example, we've been doing tier 8 bountiful Delves on a massively undergeared item level 566 balanced druid, so with all of this, you should find success. And the crazy thing is, the changes keep on coming. If you want to solo, this is absolutely gargantuan news for you. Blizzard have nerfed some health pools from about like 15 to 30% for solo Delves. And I'd say that overall means that if you have a decently geared character, if you feel really confident about your skills, solo Delves are probably the fastest way to progress now. First up, Brann. So Brann's damage is much lower with recent hotfixes, but he's actually a far better healer. I mean, above level 30, his potions heal you for over 3 million each, which is pretty much half of a DPS player's health pool. That's great. Now, enemy damage has also been lowered, and that gives us a brilliant setup where Brann can actually keep up with unavoidable damage, and then you can deal with avoidable damage nearly perfectly. And that's a change from how people were doing Delves. Last week's strategy was to take the complete crackhead broken DPS Brann and just kill everything before it kills you. Now though, it is quite a bit more controlled. It's way less of a Zergfest, and it's far more about playing the basics of the game well. Of course, the caveat there is you'll be taking down mobs a little bit slower than before. Casters, you're still going to need to kite, to CC, to use your objectives, but the bit that matters is that Brann's heals plus reduced unavoidable damage, that'll actually keep you going, and it means you can succeed. So, set your Brann to healer and watch your tier 8s become possible again. The next thing is what curios we select for him. Overall, the Amorphous Relic is insanely strong, I highly recommend it. Then the Porcelain Arrowhead Idol is pretty good for damage, and if you find yourself dying to messy pulls, then going for the Unbreakable Iron Idol is a pretty good safeguard. Now, if you're really struggling to stay alive, you could run with something like the Relic of Sentience for some extra potions, and if you're lucky enough to have found some upgraded relics, give those a try as well, just because they're upgraded. And of course, be sure to keybind your delve potions, because that will save your life potentially multiple times a delve. With the Amorphous and Unbreakable setup, we were able to finish a bountiful tier 8 as a balanced druid at item level 556, which is over 30 below what Blizzard recommend for that type of content. Now, it did take 25 minutes. It was a little bit grueling, but it absolutely is possible, and it guarantees a piece of item level 603 gear, and of course, if you do just one more in the week, it gets you a 616 bit of heroic gear from the Great Vault. So being able to do that on an item level 566 caster, that is pretty damn big. Now, to go even further, you can also level your Brann. After level 15, the only way to level up Brann is to finish a bountiful delve. Now, tier 8s give you 45,000 XP, and that's around a full level up to level 30. Do also remember that Brann is Warband White, and that means that you can level him up super fast by doing 4 bountiful delves per alt per day, if you want. That's a lot of grinding. It's probably not what I do, but if you want a powerful Brann super quick, which will be really handy when you're, say, getting some under-geared characters through delves, that certainly would be a good idea. Then, of course, the other way to make your Brann more powerful is just to increase your own item level, but you already know how to do that, and if you don't, you can check out our gearing guide, and you can get even more over at bellular.games. As an example, like our keybinding masterclass or lore walking, which is our lore podcast. There's dozens of hours of content there, and we just published our deep dive into the lore we learned from the Isle of Dorn. There is so much Titan intrigue and so much that most players will have missed, so it really is just a perfect thing to listen to get you into the groove while you're doing your delves, and it's how I'm trying to build a sustainable future for my team here, and those are just a few of the things that you get. So you can join the hundreds of new War Within members over at bellular.games today, and with that said, the question, should you delve in a group or should you delve solo? With all these changes, is soloing the meta, or do we do groups again? Well, here I've actually got good news for you. It's not as big a deal as it used to be, because it used to be basically totally broken. The current version of soloing is fast, viable, and fun if you have got the tools to handle mechanics and incoming damage. And that essentially means if you're a plate wearer, you're going to excel. If you're a paladin, you'll be very happy, but clothies may struggle. On the flip side, using a full group of 5 with a tank and a healer is laughably easy, but it is painfully slow. I wouldn't recommend it. And in that setup, all it takes is one weak link in your party, just eating a few one-shots, to just take away all of your lives. Now, for a comparison of times here, a tier 8 waterworks took us 15 minutes with a full group of randoms. Then it took 14 minutes to run with Brann spec'd into healer mode, and just under 12 minutes to run with Brann as a DPS, and that was all done on Unholy DK at eye level 603. And that basically means if you're a self-described gigapumper, definitely go solo. It'll mean no weak links eating up your lives, no waiting, and personally, I just think it's more fun. It's more engaging. It's just you, your class, and its tools. But of course, if you're undergeared, or your Brann is underleveled, or you're still learning your spec with delves, you'll definitely have a safer time treating it just like a dungeon and going in with a full group. If you do, just focus on dodging swirlies, frontals, and other mechanics. Also, a quick note, if you are trying to learn a new spec, doing a tier 8 delve with healer Brann is probably one of the fastest ways to learn all of your abilities. Just sitting there whacking a target dummy isn't really enough. It's not a realistic gameplay scenario, so nothing will drill in your learnings like actually dying for your mistakes. You'll be able to develop your skills interrupting, pathing, and practicing executing your rotation while avoiding mechanics, which is the thing you don't learn at a target dummy. The next big thing the community's learned is Delver's Bounty. Basically, delves have got a small chance to drop these maps, and these maps will give you a buff. And with that buff, the next time you finish a delve, it'll spawn a chest that gives you an upgraded bit of gear. As an example, if your map dropped from a tier 8 delve, then the next tier 8 that you do will have an absolutely massive 610 Hero 1 piece of gear at the end, which, is truly big. That's heroic raid gear. Now, these bounties appear to drop from any delve, but there is an increased chance, we believe, on bountiful delves, and it seems they can also drop whenever Zekvir attacks you, which is just something that has a random chance to happen whenever you're doing a delve. You'll have to beat him back though, and that is not always an easy thing. Treat these then as a massive bonus, and yes, a reason to do delves even if your Great Vault is full. That said, I wouldn't recommend farming for them though. I just don't think that's going to be worth the effort. What about actually succeeding in delves? Well, here are 10 big tips. Tip number 1, use the special delve potions. You should already have just stacks and stacks of the Cave Dweller's Delight potions from treasures and dirt piles around the new continent. These heal for 2.5 million HP, they've got a 5-minute cooldown, and that absolutely will be the difference between life and death, perhaps multiple times within the same delve run. So pick up a bunch of these and bind them somewhere that's easy to press so you can actually learn that muscle memory. Then when you're going into raid or Mythic Plus Dungeon, do the same for the health potions that you bring there, because look, you don't want to die and then have your raid leader, pull up the chart that says, who's dead but didn't use a health pot. Also, these are absolutely dirt cheap if you need more. Tip 2 is your talents. Remember that you can change your talents and even your spec within a single delve run. So if you need more single target damage for the boss at the end, you can just swap, and if you want to do this regularly, you can macro it or even throw it on something like an Opie ring if that's an add-on that you use. I highly recommend doing this. It could really help. Point 3 then is to take your time. Mythic Plus trained us all to be big zoomers, but a lot of WoW's fundamental appeal used to be from the basics of crowd control, understanding your foes, line of sight, and pathing. You can master all of those to have a humongous success rate. So many times I see people complaining about the difficulty of delves, but when you look at their gameplay, what they're doing is just pulling as if they're trying to hit a timer in a dungeon. You can actually go slow and steady, and if you do, you can complete a tier 8 delve with way less than the recommended amount of item level. Point 4 then is crowd control. The more you lock mobs down, the more you and Brann are able to just blast them out for free. That means you should probably talent into your stuns, your stops, your roots, and basically everything you can to be able to control mobs. Point 5 then, pay attention to what the mobs are doing. Focusing on your DPS rotation is fine, but it will get you killed if you only do that, and again, focusing in this will develop vital skills for group content. Point 6 then is to learn the delves yourself. A guide can be great, but what I'd recommend doing is just getting a note, and for whatever delve you're doing and whatever variant it is, just writing some things down as you go so you actually learn. As an example, when you notice that the Kobold Mystic's Fireball is dangerous and the Thwacker can be safely snared out of range, then the Kobold delves become pretty damn easy because you know how to deal with the mechanics. And the same applies to the rest of the delves. Knowing which spells actually hit hard lets you use defensives to reduce their damage, especially if it's damage you cannot out-sustain. Knowing what's avoidable will stop you from blowing up and dying, and seriously, this is a night and day difference. If you find yourself not actually succeeding in delves, chances are there's way more that you can do within that delve to succeed. Point 7 then is positioning and movement, because Brann is not a healer that just casts heals on you. No, he throws potions down on the floor. So if you get out of position and you have not that much health and you can't access his potions, then it's pointless him being a healer. That means position yourself near those potions potions so you're not caught out of position and, you don't die. And again, this develops foundational skills at actually playing the game well. Point 8's a kind of funny one. Pop your cooldowns absolutely all of the time, perhaps unless you're like on the pack right before a boss. Basically, just go full send against everything all the time. The difference in speed from being conservative with your cooldowns and just going full keyboard mash crazy is pretty damn insane. And the reason why this is a problem is a psychological hook that happens so much in video games whenever we think that a resource is scarce. It's a little bit like that classic example in an RPG with health potions where you basically don't use them because you want to save them for later, then you end up finishing the game with a bag full of health potions. Just use your resources and develop that as a skill, because the time savings that you make on every single delve, if that's like 4 bountifuls a day, that will compound over a week or a month to just save you so much time in the game, and even better, you'll feel fast, and that feels good. Point 9 then, if you're worried about being able to kill the boss, definitely divert yourself to find the rare or the puzzle that gives you a random buff. Now, the puzzles are always only 1 or 2 clicks to solve, and they often give you a absolutely humongous buff. The rares are a little bit harder, often 1 or 2 mechanics to dodge or interrupt, but they're quite focused on avoidable damage, so you can avoid that, and the buffs from these will basically turn the tide of an otherwise impossible boss or pack. The 10th thing then is pretty simple, and it's self-promo, but it's check out our key binding planner to make sure that all of your self-healing and your CC keys are bound, and that they're bound in a way that actually helps you to use them, that's comfortable in gameplay. Okay, finally, we've got to talk about Zekvir. V1 of this video had a whole segment about how to beat Zekvir at tier 2 to unlock the Void Mount customization, but, well, Brann was basically broken at that time. For us, he did 74% of the damage for our tier 2 kill. Now that Brann has been fixed, that's basically dead, and tier 2 will be almost impossible until further changes are made, or we're basically all extremely powerful with a super jacked up Brann and maybe mythic gear. That said, tier 1 is extremely doable, so here's the guide. Zekvir has got 5 mechanics: Fear Circle, Slow Dot, Frontal Smash, Web Pull, and Egg. Once you learn how to deal with each one of those, he ends up being a cakewalk. He's also got an interruptible heal and upgraded AoEs on tier 2, but we'll save that tier 2 stuff for when tier 2 is actually possible. Now, the Web Pull is easy. It is just a line AoE for you to dodge. The Frontal Smash is a cone, and that means the further away you are, then the harder it'll be to get away, so do stay a bit closer to Zekvir so you can just get out of that circle quickly. But of course, don't get too much closer because there's the Fear Circle. For that, you want to make sure that you've got some speed boosts available and basically make sure that your back is never against a wall. Just simply move out of it. So with all of those abilities, those are just testing your foundational positioning skills. And that means if you master Zekvir, you can feel proud of yourself. That brings me on to the dot that slows you, which is called Enfeebling Spittle. There's 2 solutions to it. Number 1 is to interrupt the cast. Number 2 is to dispel it. Now, it's a magic debuff that does a whole ton of damage, but also a slow. And that means that anything that removes a snare will kill it. That means druids shapeshifting or just a paladin using Blessing of Freedom. Because it's magic, Death Knights and Rogues can stop it applying with AMS and Cloak of Shadows, healers and Warlock pets can also dispel it, priests can mass dispel themselves, and dwarves can use Stone Form or Fireblood. Of course, it is easiest to interrupt, but you might need that for the actual hard mechanic, which is, of course, the egg. Basically, he throws out an egg, and if you don't kill the egg turns into a spider. Now, it seems a bit buggy, but any damage dealt to the egg is supposed to transfer to the spider within, and the spider is a right bastard, so absolutely focus it down ASAP. The spider itself has got auto attacks, which are pretty nasty, and it also will cast Web Blast. That actually does millions of damage and stuns. You do not want it. So if the spider does hatch, then you definitely want to use your stuns or other CCs to keep it at bay, and you can even make macros that specifically cast your CC at the spider. So as an example, you can make a simple macro that's just /target web terror /cast and then whatever the name of your CC is. Hit that button, and even if you're targeting Zekvir or whatever else, it will just stun the thing. And that really is the core of things. So you want to focus down the egg and the spider, you want to keep an eye on what Zekvir is doing so you don't get killed, and basically juggling those plates is what will get you the kill. Now, currently Brann is a bit of a lazy bastard. He does not reliably target the egg, which just means you're going to have to focus on the egg even more. Those are the tactics you need to get a kill, and if you're not getting them, do not worry. Knowledge is not enough. Actually executing that knowledge is what you need, and the only way to do that is just to practice. It's to learn, to improve, to grow, to maybe realize, hang on, I'm always late doing a stun. Maybe I'll make a macro, or maybe I'll change my keybind. That kind of thing. And if you're not used to harder content like this, this is a really, really good challenge to set for yourself. It will absolutely make you a better player. Now, a final note then is on Brann. I'd absolutely keep Brann as a DPS for this one, and the reason why is fairly simple. Extra damage is just more important than extra healing, and that's because all of the damage, well, most of the damage here, is avoidable from the boss's mechanics. There is a small amount of auto attack damage, but chances are your spec will be able to deal with that with its own kit. And if you want a final leg up, you can grab DBM and the Delves add-on. This will basically announce whenever Zekvir is doing things, and it'll also show cooldown timers for his abilities. And if you use weak auras, you gotta try the ability timeline weak aura that takes all of that DBM info and it just puts it on a handy timeline for you. It is far less cluttered. It's actually my personal go-to for basically knowing what's coming up next. And if you would like to get even better at World of Warcraft to help your delving, check out this video next because we have done all of the heavy lifting and you'll basically just end up with amazing keybinds for all of your characters. Check it out next. I'll see you over there.